What we want to take a look at now are functions. Okay, now functions are fairly similar to sub-procedures. As a matter of fact, in a lot of ways, they're the same. There are a couple of differences. One glaring difference is when you want to use a function, you don't have a call statement like this. This is a call statement for a sub-procedure. I'm calling give hint down here. But in this game, what I've done now in our guessing game, I've added a function called valid entry. So you don't use a call statement for that. What you do is you just put the function name and then the arguments that you're sending the function in parentheses. Visual Basic has a number of built-in functions. Like right here, we're using the val function right here. So that's built into Visual Basic. It takes this string of text that's in here and goes through it, pulls out any numbers. We don't see the val function. It's built in, but that happens here. Up here, this program is using the older method of creating a random number in a range. So it's using the random function here, where this just returns a number from 0 to but less than 1. And up here we've got the randomize function, which is using the system's clock time as a seed so that these numbers are truly random each time it's clicked. So in this instance here, we've added a function called valid entry. This is really common, that you're asking for some input from the user and you're not sure, there's a range of that input, and if they don't give you the right input, you would like to prompt them to try again, that wasn't a valid entry. And so a valid entry function is definitely something that you want to build generically and have a few different types of valid entry functions that you can just copy and paste into a program. For this one here, the pre is a number is sent to the function to see if it's a valid guess, and the post is true is returned if the guess is in the range, false if it's outside the range. So another difference you'll see here in this function is, so we got a function valid entry. There's there's 3 parameters in here. Okay, I'm getting the number that they've guessed. I'm getting the minimum number in the range and the maximum. You notice that all of these are by value. The function can't do anything to change any of these. And really, that's one other difference to a function. A function, by definition, should not have any parameters by reference. It shouldn't change anything that comes in. It should just take things in and then spit out some simple answer. That's what a function does. It has a simple function that it performs. Now, one difference here is the function's going to return some value. Could be something it figures out, be it a number or something. In this case, it's just a Boolean. So after the parentheses, valid entry is a Boolean. So we have kind of this another dimensioning statement in a way for a function here. So this function is taking these inputs, never changes the inputs, but it's going to figure out some Boolean. So what it's looking at here is that if the number guessed is greater than the max or the number guessed is less than the minimum, it's going to return the Boolean false. Other than that, it returns true. So what we've done up here is we've got this valid entry, if then, right? If valid entry is true, and I didn't say equals true in here, but if you don't, it assumes true, but I guess we could make it a little more readable by putting that in there. It would assume that if that's not typed in there, so it's going to say if what valid entry returns when it gets these 3 numbers is true, then go ahead and check if they got their guess right and call give hint. If it's not true, it won't go inside of here. It'll go to the else, and a message box should show up saying, hey, please enter a valid guess in the appropriate range. So here again, we're making a guess, and that's a good guess, but it's too low. Make a higher guess. That's too high. Let me just, we'll go outside the range just to see if that works. Enter a valid guess, right? It doesn't take that input there. Here again, doesn't take that input. So a valid entry function like this is really one that we would like to have a copy of. So I'm just going to copy that code. I'm going to go over here to where I've got some functions, just make a new little text document here, and this is going to be valid entry, and I might want to call it number range, because there's a number type of valid entries we might have, and we'll put that in there as text. And now if I need that valid entry, here it is. I can kind of see my pre and post comments here. Again, I can copy and paste this out. You know, another thing in this program, a commonly used function really is this whole idea of the random number. When we used to use these equations and these couple of functions for, there's an integer function in here too, making sure this doesn't round, just taking the integer portion. This is a pain to set these up. If I had a number of places in the program where a random number gets created, it would be much more convenient to use a randomInteger integer function. Here I send the function the low and high number for a range, and the post is a random integer between the low number and the high number is returned. So I'm going to actually just select that text out of the preview, copy it, and we're going to do that in this program right here. We're going to put in this function. See, it just comes in, there's my function. And instead of having this right here, then we would say that secret number, oh, and it isn't dimension anywhere else, so we have to say dim secret number is integer, and what it equals now is random integer. There's my function right there. And what I need to do is send it the low number and the high, so int low and int high, and there you go. Now I've got my random number created. All I did was copy and paste this function in for the random number. I didn't have to come up with that equation and all that stuff all over again, and it should work the same. Right? So we're kind of good to go here. So having functions like this that are generically written and reusable, very helpful to save them in a text document so you can just copy and paste them into programs and move along. Of course, oh, and this one does have the object variable in here, or the using the random object kind of thing in there. I didn't even realize that. It's not the old equation, which is fine too. It's not very hard to put this random object stuff. You know, people probably don't worry as much about having a function for random numbers now that they can use the random object. One thing I would say here with this though is you don't want to keep creating new random objects all the time. All you need is one random object, and then you can refer to it and get the next one every time. So redimensioning the random number is fine, but I would put static in here for the object so it doesn't get redimensioned. So functions are a lot the same as subprocedures if you understand them, but by rule they shouldn't have anything by reference, and they should just return one simple value from where they're called, and they're called a little differently.